When I was hospitalized after my miscarriage, I discovered my husband was involved with his 50-year-old mistress. That woman even used my insulated mug and ate my homemade dish. Later, I found out my second child was lost because his mistress put a substance that caused the miscarriage in my bracelet, and my husband even hit me for her. Once, when his mistress got into a car accident, he chose to save her, watching Kevin get crushed and burned to death under the car. After the divorce at the family gathering, I revealed all the awful things he had done. Now his company went bankrupt and he's delivering food, and his mistress is bedridden and paralyzed. I saw my husband taking his 50-year-old mistress to a doctor's appointment for gynecological exam. My husband, David, showed no sign of panic. He merely said to me, calm and nonchalant, "We can talk about anything when we go home." Seeing him so calm and nonchalant, I felt an overwhelming bitterness and sadness. We had been married for 3 years. I had been pregnant 4 times and I had 4 miscarriages. What was I to him? Just someone he considered suitable for marriage? A nanny to bear his children and take care of his every need? I sighed, my heart felt like it was being crushed by a boulder, I could barely breathe. "David, let's get a divorce." But he didn't even pause his steps after hearing that. He just walked away, arm in arm with his 50-year-old love of his life, Michelle. My heart filled with rage as I glanced at the test results the doctor had just given me. Because of my multiple miscarriages, from tonight on, I would never be able to have my own children. Everyone around us said I married a good husband. He was from a good family background, good-looking, had a gentle nature and a successful career. Everyone said I must have saved the galaxy in a past life to marry him. I knew he was an excellent man, so I always tried to be a good wife. However, no one knew that he had a love of his life, Michelle, who was 20 years his senior. He married me merely to keep up appearances and be with Michelle. I told Carol I wanted to divorce David, but she slapped me across the face, ignoring my frail body. "Are you out of your mind? Giving up such an excellent man? Why do you want a divorce?" I told her my husband had cheated. Carol was silent for a moment. "Isn't it normal for men to stray? Besides, David is such an excellent man. Just grit your teeth and get through it." Heh. That was my mother. Kevin was the only one who supported me regarding the divorce. "Chloe, I agree with your divorce. If you're not happy, then don't stay with him." I sent the divorce papers to David, along with the diamond ring and various pieces of jewelry he bought me when we got married, all by mail. The next morning, I hadn't even woken up. He rushed over to find me. David was indeed handsome, that was undeniable. But looking at his face now, I felt no flutter in my heart. "Chloe, what are you doing? Why are you asking for a divorce?" I sneered inwardly. How dare he ask me why? "David, aren't you clear about what you've done?" He sighed, looking exhausted. "I've truly wronged you recently. But Michelle hasn't had an easy life either." "Why?" "David, I just wanted an explanation from you." But he never brought up why he went to that doctor's appointment with Michelle that day. He even left me alone in the hospital room. He clearly knew I had a miscarriage. I wanted to close the door to stop dragging this out with him. But he pushed the door open and forced his way in, then hugged me. I instantly felt absolutely disgusted and quickly pushed him away. "Don't touch me, you're disgusting." The disgust on my face stung his heart. I had never seen such a complicated expression on his face before. "David, I won't expose all the sordid things you've done. Let's part ways amicably." But his face darkened. "Don't push your luck. I've already been more than reasonable with you, don't make a scene." I laughed in anger. He really knew how to turn the tables on me. "I'm not discussing this with you. I'm telling you I'm getting a divorce." I no longer wanted to hear any of his explanations. He seemed to be furious, his eyes blazing with anger, as if he wanted to devour me. He was silent for a moment, then continued. Today is my mother-in-law's birthday. As his daughter-in-law, shouldn't you be there? Chloe, there's a limit to how much you can make a scene. Don't embarrass everyone. Thinking of his mother, I sighed deeply and lowered my head. His mother was a very kind person who gave me endless kindness. She treated me like her own daughter. For some thought, I changed my clothes and went back to Eleanor's place with David. On the way, I deliberately sat in the back seat. I used to insist playfully on sitting next to him. But ever since I saw him and that old woman doing that on the dashcam, just thinking about it made me feel utterly repulsive. David's face was extremely grim, especially when he saw me sitting in the back, his face clouded over. When we arrived at Eleanor's home, I felt a bit uncomfortable. After all, I had already decided to divorce him. Eleanor affectionately held my hand. Sweetie, I've heard the baby is gone, it's gone. As long as you two as a couple are doing well, I'll be very happy. I gave an uncomfortable smile. Eleanor was truly good to me. I couldn't even bring myself to say I wanted to divorce David. As soon as David entered, he went to the balcony. He was on his phone talking to someone. Eleanor complained a few times. I don't know what's wrong with Dave. He's home but still thinking about work. I sneered inwardly. He wasn't busy with work. He was on the phone with Michelle. His phone had rung several times on the way here. I had seen the caller ID. A moment later, David walked over and said to Eleanor, Eleanor, Michelle is coming over too. She heard Chloe was here too and insisted on coming to see you. My body instantly stiffened, and I looked at David in disbelief. But he ignored my gaze. Eleanor and Michelle were close friends. Eleanor beamed. That's perfect. I was just thinking I haven't seen her in days. David walked up to me and frowned in warning. Don't cause any trouble. I gave him a faint smile. Cause trouble? Why would I? He doesn't deserve my sadness anymore. During dinner, I sat to David's left and Michelle sat to his right. I barely touched my food that night. David's gaze remained fixed on Michelle, and he occasionally served her food. I gave a bitter laugh inwardly. We had been married for 3 years, and he had never served me food once. I remembered once on my birthday, he went to be with Michelle, who had a cold. When he returned, I was very upset and confronted him. Why didn't you spend my birthday with me? He replied expressionlessly, birthdays come every year. That kind of person. He would always choose to abandon me for that woman, Michelle, at any time. When the company sent me out of town on a business trip, I didn't even tell David I was going. He wouldn't care where I went anyway. In the past, when I was out of town, I missed David terribly and called him many times. But what about him? Not only wouldn't he answer my calls, he wouldn't even reply to my texts. I was heartbroken. When I got home, I confronted him. He said indifferently, Michelle was sick. I was at the hospital taking care of her, so I didn't see it. How lost and heartbroken I was then. The messages showed read, yet he wouldn't even bother to reply. Calling those past events, I was still overwhelmed with sadness. Company held an auction, and my supervisor assigned me to host it. The auction was going smoothly, but who knew that when it came to the last item, a rare antique jewel, it went missing. When the cover was lifted, the people around us saw the empty box, and everyone exchanged bewildered glances. The owner's face turned grim. I braced myself and explained to everyone, and although the final outcome was somewhat satisfactory, all in all, it was a failed auction. The owner called me in for a talk and gave me a severe scolding. At such a major event, how could such an incident happen? I was speechless and couldn't defend myself. I had made sure everything was perfectly arranged before going on stage. There was no way this should have happened. Now that the jewel was gone and I was the person in charge, I was bound to be reprimanded. I felt the whole thing felt too suspicious, so I investigated privately. Sure enough, I saw a masked person stealthily entered the venue. I asked a few questions and he confessed. He told me Michelle instructed him to do it. I let out a cold laugh. It was Michelle's doing, as I had suspected from the start. I showed David the surveillance footage. He merely glanced at it indifferently and said casually, "So what? Just based on someone's word? Why don't you say you're framing her?" In David's eyes, his love of his life, Michelle, was an innocent, gentle, beautiful, and kind woman. A sharp pang went through my heart. When had David ever cared about me like that? So this was the difference between love and not loving. When you love someone, you believe them unconditionally. Since he said that, there was no need for me to drag this out. "David, it's the same thing I said before. Let's get a divorce." David frowned again. Before he could speak, I turned and walked away without a second thought. If he wouldn't stand up for me, I would go to Michelle myself. I didn't expect Michelle to admit so readily that she was behind it. "Michelle, I knew you weren't as innocent as you seem." Sure enough, David wasn't around and you've shown your true colors? Michelle wore flawless makeup. Although she was 50 years old this year, I could only see a few fine lines around her eyes. However, I wouldn't believe that face was natural. "Chloe, no matter what I do wrong, David will unconditionally forgive me. Do you know why?" "Because he loves me." Michelle smiled triumphantly. I smiled bitterly. What she said was true, but I wasn't here to discuss that today. "You need to explain yourself for what you've done, or I'll release this video and these recordings." Michelle stood up and walked to the stairs. She gestured for me to come closer, and I didn't think much of it. Who knew she would suddenly grab my hand and ramble on crazily? Before I could react, she fell down the stairs herself. I watched her clutching her leg, groaning in pain. David shouted, rushed over, and slapped me without even asking what happened. "Why did you push her?" David's face was terrible. Dawned on me instantly. Michelle had set a trap for me. I stated firmly, "I didn't push her, she fell on her own." David didn't believe me at all and picked up Michelle and left. I gave a bitter laugh. Why bother explaining? He didn't trust me at all, just like before. Important files went missing from his company. David blamed everything on me. After this incident, my resolve to divorce David was strengthened. I brought it up to him several times, but he just looked at me coldly. I knew why he was angry. Michelle was a dancer. I heard her ankle was permanently damaged, and she would never be able to dance again. But what does that have to do with me? It's not like I pushed her. But David didn't think so, calling me a bitch repeatedly. If she really couldn't be cured, you'll never have a moment of peace in your life. "Chloe, I'll make you pay." I thought he was just trying to scare me, but I didn't expect him to really retaliate against me. That day, Kevin was coming out of school. Michelle was driving her car when suddenly a large truck swerved out. She made a turn, but the car flipped over. That moment, Kevin was to Michelle's left. Both were trapped under the leaking car. David heard the sound and rushed over, but there was simply no time. Between Michelle and Kevin, David gritted his teeth and still chose to save Michelle. 'Cause there wasn't enough time, the car exploded. My lively brother was burned beyond recognition. I didn't even dare let Carol see Kevin's condition. I can't imagine how heartbroken she would be. I reviewed the footage repeatedly, and Michelle was actually responsible. She was either looking down to pick something up or doing something else while driving. That brief moment caused the large truck to swerve, and Kevin was hit. But David was still protecting Michelle. My eyes red-rimmed, my body felt cold, but my heart was colder. "David, at a time like this, you're still protecting her? That's still my brother. Can you please consider my feelings? She clearly killed my brother." Slam. David slapped me again. A red mark instantly appeared on my right cheek. I gave a bitter laugh, tears streamed down my face. "David, you've got guts." Something inside me broke. This feeling was so agonizing it felt like exploding. My heart felt like it was being squeezed tightly. I dragged my body, so weak I could barely stand, step by step forward. Michelle had a triumphant expression, but David's expression was complicated. It was the first time he'd seen Chloe so frail. Even when she had lost her previous children, she had never been in such a state. Walking on the way, I found it utterly laughable. 3 years of marriage meant less than a single tear from Michelle. I was exhausted and weary. I didn't want to say another word to him. This relationship should have ended long ago. I filed a lawsuit with the court to divorce David. Actually, I didn't want to burn bridges with him, but they forced my hand. But I knew our marriage wouldn't be easy to untangle. There were simply too many ties between us. Later, I had to attend the family gathering. Unusually, this time David didn't send me clothes or ask me to pretend we were a loving couple. The family gathering, I sat lost in thought in a corner. Even when Eleanor called my name, it took me a long time to react. 'Cause my heart was heavy. I had a few too many drinks. I had to pee badly, so I decided to go to the restroom. I stumbled towards the restroom, not seeing Michelle's triumphant expression after I left. Due to my profession, I always carried a voice recorder. When I came out of the restroom, a man was looking at me with ill intent. I had a bad feeling. On second thought, this was the Davis family's home after all. No one would dare do anything to me. Who knew that when the man saw me come out, he grabbed me in a hug. I struggled, telling him to let go, but he didn't budge. "What do you want?" My eyes were filled with terror. The huge disparity in strength between men and women was too great. I couldn't break free at all. That woman Vanessa was right. Your figure is very good. I sensed something was wrong. Did Vanessa send you? I knew perfectly well how much Vanessa hated me. The man nodded, smiling, and scanned me from head to toe. That's right. She told me if I did what she said, she'd give me $1 million. He approached me step by step. I thought something terrible was about to happen. Unexpectedly, I heard Eleanor's voice. I turned my head and saw Eleanor looking at me with a surprised expression. Vanessa, meanwhile, wore a look of triumph. "Mom, let me explain. How could you do this? Daniel was always so good to you. Audrey, what you're doing is absolutely outrageous." I pushed the man away, let out a cold laugh, and watched Vanessa still pretending ignorance. "All right, since everyone is here today, I'll announce something." Daniel rushed over at the sound, saw everything, and his face instantly darkened. "Daniel and I are getting divorced. I'm sorry, Mom, for hiding this from you for so long. The person Daniel has always loved is Vanessa. I was never the one he put on a pedestal." These words, Eleanor's face filled with disbelief. She glanced at Daniel, then at Vanessa. Seeing that neither of them spoke, Eleanor's expression changed instantly. "Daniel, tell me, is this true? Do you really like Aunt Vanessa?" Daniel opened his mouth but couldn't say a word. Eleanor thought this was the most ridiculous thing in the world. "Vanessa, I treated you like a sister, and you're pursuing/seducing my son? Are you crazy?" Eleanor was very agitated. Vanessa, however, looked upset. "Audrey cheated today. You should be blaming her. Daniel and I are truly in love." I leaned against the pillar, watching these two sickening people, and almost threw up last night's dinner. But I've never liked being slandered. I took out the voice recorder from my pocket. Vanessa instantly panicked and tried to snatch it, but Eleanor blocked her. Conversation I just had with the man played from the voice recorder. Daniel looked at Vanessa in disbelief. He seemed unable to believe that the woman he idealized would do such a thing. "Daniel, this is the end for us today. Since you won't agree to a divorce, we'll see each other in court." I threw the voice recorder at him, just about to make a grand exit. Daniel, however, grabbed my arm. "What do you mean? Are you really so eager to divorce me?" I looked at him calmly. "Why not? I've had 3 miscarriages. Did you ever come to see me even once? Daniel, we should have ended this long ago. All these years. I just kept thinking that someday you'd finally care. Now it just seems like a joke. Daniel's face was slightly pale as he watched Audrey's resolute departing back. He felt as though he was about to lose her. For an entire week, I didn't go back to our shared home. I stayed at the office the whole time. My boss still had some misunderstandings about me because of the previous incident. Even though he now knew Vanessa was behind it, it was ultimately my mistake that caused the firm to lose such a significant contract. I went back to the house to pack some things. Unexpectedly, Daniel was also at home. He looked terrible, as if he hadn't slept for days. When he saw me, a look of guilt actually appeared on his face. I went back to the room to pack, and he followed me the whole time. "Are you out of your mind?" Daniel remained silent. It wasn't until I walked out of the room that he spoke softly. "I'm sorry. I misunderstood what happened last time." In the past few days, Daniel had been investigating and discovered that Vanessa had secretly done many things to wrong Audrey behind his back. But before, he hadn't believed Audrey, thinking she was intentionally causing trouble. So what? I had no desire to hear his explanations, so I turned and left. He still hadn't agreed to the divorce. One day after work, I came home to find him in my new apartment, where he had made a huge amount of food for me. He probably thought I'd be touched, but I was actually extremely annoyed. "Don't come to my home again. If you dare to come back, I'll report you for trespassing." I pushed him out and warned him sternly. Daniel stood at the entrance with a heartbroken expression, looking at the closed door, his heart heavy with an indescribable feeling. Ever since Audrey had started to distance herself, he felt an emptiness in his heart. I never expected that after I brought up the divorce, that crazy Daniel would bother me more than once. That evening, I went to the restaurant with a colleague. I don't know how he found out, but he actually showed up at the restaurant. He sat at the piano and played the same piece he played when I first met him. After finishing the song, he walked up to me and pulled a bouquet of bright red roses from his arms. "Audrey, I know everything before was my fault. Will you forgive me?" I looked calmly at the man I once loved so desperately. Daniel, how ironic. When I loved you, you thought my love was cheap. Now that I don't love you, you've started to regret it. But I'm not some object, to be discarded when disliked and picked up when desired. Daniel, do you remember our first meeting? Back then, I thought that peace was for me, but it was actually for Vanessa. I gave a self-deprecating laugh. "Please, I'm begging you, just let me go. I'm truly tired." Vanessa suddenly appeared out of nowhere. "Daniel, did you hear that? She doesn't love you anymore. Don't be foolish anymore. The person you truly love is me." Daniel's face darkened and he shoved Vanessa away. The way he and Audrey were now was undeniably linked to Vanessa. Two of them started arguing and I, annoyed, pulled my colleague, ready to leave. That old hag Vanessa, losing her mind, actually picked up a hot coffee and poured it over my head. Daniel, with quick reflexes, pushed me away, but the scalding hot coffee splashed onto his head. His face was immediately scalded. I froze for a moment, standing there staring at him blankly. Vanessa was heartbroken, frantically shouting and wiping his face with tissues. "That hot coffee, what were you doing? What if you're disfigured?" Daniel looked at her without speaking, his expression terrifying, like the calm before a storm. Vanessa fell silent, looking timidly at Daniel. I watched the two of them with interest, suddenly no longer wanting to leave. "Vanessa, you knew that hot water would scald skin, and you still did that. You did it on purpose. Vanessa, how did I never realize how malicious you are before?" Daniel's words startled Vanessa, and she hastily tried to explain, but Daniel gave her no opportunity. I turned and left, no longer wanting to deal with that pair. "Wait, Audrey, I'm sorry. I disrupted your dinner today. I'm very apologetic. I waved my hand, giving a cold laugh. You knew you'd bother me and still came looking for me, Daniel. Are you insane? Watching him lower his head with a crestfallen expression, I felt immensely satisfied. All those years when Vanessa bullied me and I told Daniel he never trusted me. But every time I wanted to retaliate, Daniel would side with Vanessa. Seeing Daniel act like this now, I felt both amused and speechless. Men indeed are no good. On Ethan's anniversary of his death, during a pouring rain, I bought him his favorite calla lilies. I drove all the way to the cemetery to see him, telling him about what had been happening lately. Suddenly, an umbrella appeared over my head. I looked up and saw Daniel's face. He looked at me with a worried expression. I'm sorry, it's all my fault. If only I had saved. His face was filled with guilt. But what good was that? Ethan would never come back. Daniel, let's get divorced. I'm serious. Before, you didn't love me and I foolishly clung to you. Now I understand, I can't force it. Daniel lowered his head. Through a while, when he looked up, there were tears in his eyes. All along, he had wronged her. He had betrayed a girl's true feelings. If he had realized earlier that Audrey was in his heart, would things not be like this between them now? But where in the world is there a way to undo it? I know nothing I do can make up for the pain I've caused you, but I will spend my entire life making it up to you. Didn't you always love children? We can have one. The mention of children, my heart ached fiercely. I knocked his umbrella away and yelled loudly. Daniel, are you doing this on purpose? You know I can't have children anymore. Daniel froze. He didn't know about that. Haha, I found it incredibly ironic. I wouldn't be foolish again. Get out. Don't ever appear before me again. Just seeing you makes me sick now. Daniel didn't listen and insisted on pulling me. Suddenly, Daniel knelt down in front of me. It was my fault. Hit me, curse me, but please don't leave me alone. I gave a cold laugh, showed no mercy, and gave him 2 hard slaps right in front of Ethan's grave. This is what you owe me. Through returning home, my heart remained restless for a long time. Thinking of my deceased children and Ethan, an uncontrollable sadness welled up inside me. Tears streamed down my cheeks. I saw Ethan's memorial photograph in the room, which further solidified my resolve for a divorce. One has to grow up after all, you can't fall into the same trap twice. Vanessa couldn't dance anymore and she was getting older. No one would hire her for work. The once famous dancer, now without Daniel's protection, had stooped to performing for tips and enduring insults at the bar, till facing humiliation. This was my first time in a bar and I felt completely uncomfortable. As soon as I walked in, I saw Vanessa on stage, swaying her hips. She saw me too. The expression on her face froze instantly. I had originally intended to leave, but seeing her like that, I changed my mind. Vanessa still owed me a life. My second child was killed by Vanessa. She had put musk in the bracelet Daniel gave me. It was the first gift Daniel ever gave me so naturally. I wore it every day except when I showered. Who knew I would later suffer a miscarriage? The doctor told me at the time that my body was already weak, and prolonged exposure to musk had caused the miscarriage. Back then, I thought Daniel didn't know, so I never told him about it. I worried he'd feel guilty if he knew. Looking back now, it's truly laughable. How could someone like him ever feel guilty? Through a little drink, for some reason, my head felt a bit hazy. My colleague was already tearing up the dance floor, and I didn't want to disturb her. I sent her a message, planning to take a cab home by myself. As soon as I stepped out, I saw Daniel. His hands were in his pockets, and his face was cold. I ignored him and followed the driver's instructions to find my car. To my surprise, before I could react, a group of people suddenly covered my eyes and mouth. Not bad, this chick is really good looking. Vanessa didn't lie to us this time. I knew these people were sent by Vanessa again. No wonder her gaze earlier had been so malicious. As a girl, I was no match for them. I thought I was really going to be in trouble today. Daniel appeared out of nowhere. "What are you doing? How dare you touch my woman?" The thugs were driven away. After all, Daniel's identity carried weight. He was very anxious. "Are you okay? This must be Vanessa's doing again. This time, I definitely won't let her get away with it." I smiled faintly. "Daniel, you've really changed. Before, he never let me off the hook, whether I was right or wrong." "Audrey, I love you. I just realized it belatedly. I'm sure of my feelings now. Please forgive me, okay? I'll treat you well from now on." I put my hands on my hips and laughed angrily. "Daniel, I'm telling you, it's impossible for us. Do you remember our second child? He was a miscarriage because of the bracelet you gave me." Daniel's body stiffened. He didn't know how to react. He had indirectly caused the death of his own child. Daniel, a grown man, actually burst into tears. I shook my head and left directly. No matter how much he regretted it or how much he wanted to make amends, it was impossible now. We were no longer on the same path. I thought Vanessa would finally settle down, but she actually came to the office to cause a scene. She called me the other woman, and everyone around us stared blankly. I picked up the orange juice and threw orange juice on her face. I spoke without hesitation. "Don't be shameless. Who's the other woman here? Daniel and I are married. Our marriage is legally binding. Do you really think I'm the other woman?" Vanessa wouldn't listen. She no longer had her glamorous appearance. Now, she was truly like an ordinary woman. Especially when she was challenging me, she looked exactly like an old hag from a small town. "That's not true. Even if you two are married, he doesn't love you at all. He loves me. Only the unloved one is the other woman." She suddenly ran to the rooftop. Everyone in the office was terrified and immediately called the fire department and the police. "Can't you just talk things through? Do you have to threaten to jump?" The police called Daniel, and the officer's tone was immediately confrontational. I took the phone. "Come quickly and take your person away. How can we work with her like this?" Daniel, worried Audrey might get hurt, rushed over immediately. To everyone's surprise, when Vanessa saw Daniel arrive, she became even more agitated. "Daniel, you heartless man. I've been with you for so many years. Now you're just saying it's over? What gives you the right?" Daniel pursed his lips and spoke gravely. "Vanessa, everything you've done, I've covered for you. I watched this bickering couple argue with boredom. To be honest, Daniel had been with Vanessa for so many years that he was tired of it. Now, his greatest wish was for Audrey to forgive him, and for the two of them to live a quiet life together. What a beautiful thing that would be. But it was ruined by the woman standing before him. Vanessa had completely lost her mind. She felt that since Daniel wouldn't let her have a good life, she would make him live in guilt for the rest of his life. She jumped from the roof, landing perfectly on the safety air cushion. Although Vanessa's life was saved, she would have to spend the rest of it in a hospital bed. She was fully paralyzed, only able to move her mouth. Daniel hadn't bothered me for a long time, and I was happy for the peace. The court hearing was scheduled for next month. He had been dragging his feet on the divorce, which made me feel very agitated. Colleagues suddenly told me to step outside, and I followed him with a bewildered look. Daniel was wearing a silver-gray suit. He held a large bouquet of roses, and there were all sorts of balloons around. I frowned, not understanding what he was up to now. "Audrey, I know everything before was my fault. Will you forgive me?" He walked up to me and knelt down on one knee. I looked at him calmly, as if he were a stranger. "Daniel, have some shame. You left my brother to die. When I needed you most, you went to be with Vanessa. And our children, and because of the miscarriages, I can't have children anymore. Thinking of this, I felt even more distressed. Daniel lowered his head, his eyes brimming with tears. He knew it was all his fault. He wanted to make amends, but it seemed it was too late now. I took his flowers, threw them on the ground, and trampled them. Just for his infidelity, I could never forgive him in this lifetime. Not long after, Daniel sent me the divorce papers. He had already signed them. I looked over the contents. He actually left half of his assets to me. I didn't hesitate. Through the divorce, I lived a very happy life. Eleanor came to find me, constantly apologizing. I shook my head and smiled, indicating that I no longer cared. Since the two of us were already divorced, it didn't matter how things were before. I wouldn't think about it anymore. People, after all, have to look forward. On Ethan's anniversary of his death, I bought many snacks and toys to bring to them. I didn't even know if the 3 children were boys or girls. My heart ached that I never had the chance to be their mother. I hoped they would be reincarnated into a better family in their next life. Just as I arrived at the cemetery, I saw Daniel. He was dressed in black, holding a cloth and wiping the gravestone. I frowned. What was he doing here? Daniel, who gave you permission to be here? All 3 children died because of him. How could I ever let it go? Daniel had probably just cried, wiping away his tears. I'm sorry, I miss them too much. I found it ironic. He never said he missed them when I had the miscarriages. Daniel, I believe the children wouldn't want to see the father who caused their deaths. Don't come here anymore. I am no saint. I will never forgive those who have harmed me. Daniel lowered his head guiltily, tears welling up in his eyes. I scoffed. When I had the miscarriage, I was alone in the hospital. The doctor said I needed nutritious food to recover. Who would have thought? He promised to go out and get me food, but instead, he went to find Vanessa. But looking back now, my heart was surprisingly calm. Time can heal many things. I had let it go. Daniel looked at my indifferent expression, feeling even more dejected. I heard from him again half a year later. During those 6 months, I worked hard and finally became a department manager. While discussing a collaboration, I ordered a few hot coffees for delivery, and when I went to pick them up, I found Daniel delivering food. Our eyes met, and he was the first to lower his gaze. Long time no see. You've become even more beautiful. I didn't reply. I wasn't interested at all in why he was suddenly delivering food. It was just that after our divorce, Daniel's life had become truly miserable. My colleagues told me that his firm had suddenly faced a major crisis. The hole they needed to fill was simply too vast. Daniel didn't have much money then. After the firm went bankrupt, Daniel's mother was suddenly diagnosed with late-stage cancer and didn't have long to live. After he left, I saw him at the entrance getting into a conflict with a few delivery drivers. The reason was that his orders were getting stolen. I glanced at them and paid no attention. My career had stabilized. That day, visiting a relative at the hospital, I saw Vanessa in a ward, fully paralyzed and unable to move. Vanessa used to be a dancer, often graceful and ethereal. Now she could only lie in bed, needing others to assist with all her basic needs. When she saw me, she stammered, "You bitch. All of this is because of you." I raised an eyebrow and left, my heels clicking. How amusing, she's in such a state, yet still doesn't forget to insult people. A year later, I got married. On my wedding day, someone rushed over to me. "Ms. Audrey, a lot of roses just arrived at the entrance. What's going on?" I was slightly surprised and walked out to see. Seeing the roses, Daniel's face flashed in my mind. There were also a few words on the flowers. "Happy wedding." I smiled faintly and told someone to throw the roses away. He and I had no connection anymore. From now on, my future belonged to me.